Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex with my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. I'm a little tired of the rumors. I'm a little tired of this prospect, that candidate, this candidate. I kind of want to take a look at the NFL draft for a couple of minutes and really look at Daniel Jeremiah from NFL.com's projection for where the Giants could go with the 5th and 7th overall picks this upcoming draft. Really excited about all the prospects that we have left to uncover. This offseason is going to be really fun as we take a look at each individual player, hopefully get some player interviews for you guys, and so much more, regarding just what these guys could bring to the Giants and where they might go. Joe Schoen is an interesting kind of GM where he might want to go best player available, might not want to go for need essentially. So I'm really curious to see his strategy and plan this upcoming draft. Maybe he wants to trade back, get some more value and target a quarterback for next year. Like there's so many things that could happen. But Daniel Jeremiah's draft, his little mock draft, we're going to go through the 5th and 7th overall picks and, why they make sense and really what they bring is really intriguing. Now, I'm not opposed to what he did here. Really just going with what seems to be best player available at the position that he goes with. But I'm excited for you, Anthony, to give me your take on these players as well, because I know you're a big prospect of one of them at least. And there's a lot to like about him for sure. Before we dive into good stuff, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great, and I think that Daniel Jeremiah is one of the best analysts covering the NFL draft. I think that, for NFL.com, I've heard a lot of people mention Daniel Jeremiah as a potential rival to Louis Riddick as the best analyst that could make a general manager one day. Now, of course, I've seen Daniel Jeremiah respond to those claims and respond to those rumors and say he never plans on really doing that. He loves his job, he loves what he's doing, so he hasn't put his hat into the ring for any general manager races, but he is still making great content covering the NFL, covering the NFL draft, evaluating talent. And I do think that he is one of the best talent evaluators in the media. So when he's discussing prospects, I listen, and I think all of you should too. So when we discuss these players that he has for the Giants upcoming, I think that, one of them is a surprise to me. I wasn't expecting one of these picks. I think that we've seen mostly for the Giants mock drafts, we've seen the same player at the 5th overall pick in almost every single mock draft. Like that's how I feel. It's like the number one and two players that we want to see the Giants draft are just widely expected not to fall to the number 5 pick. So then there's just this backup plan that the Giants seem to have in every single mock draft. But then of course with number 7, they can get a little creative. It's a little bit different. So that's what I really want to discuss is that 7th overall pick once we get into it, Alex. But I'm curious to hear your takes on these picks.
Well, absolutely. And I'll tell you what, if you're a Giants fan, you know one thing for sure. Offensive line is ever more important. After this past season, we saw Daniel Jones, Mike Glennon, Jake Fromm, every single person that stepped into the quarterback position get their ass absolutely whooped every single game. The amount of hits that Daniel Jones took, the amount of hits Mike Glennon took, whether or not a guy was open, it was beyond my wildest dreams. And honestly, the Giants don't have a choice. They really don't have a choice but to spend one of those picks on an offensive lineman. It sucks that Shane has to come in here and immediately say, like, we don't have the luxury of going best player available. We have, and to be fair, the best player available might be an offensive lineman, so and that will likely be the case at 5. So I think that they kind of get away with one there because usually you don't really want to go with a need, but offensive lineman, the value, positional value. And if you look at the Buffalo Bills, Anthony, they do actually care a lot about positional value. You look at their running back situation, Devin Singletary, Zach Moss, they have so many like mid-round picks that they have to fill in these positions that get injured a lot. As we saw with Saquon Barkley or, their offensive line, which ranked 14th in pass blocking this past season. They do invest heavily in the right positions. I mean, the wide receiver, Gabriel Davis, 4th round pick from 2020, over 200 yards and 4 touchdowns in this past game against the Chiefs. He had more touchdowns. He had 4 times as many touchdowns as Galladay and Kadarius Toney the entire season. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about positional value. And Gabriel Davis didn't just have all that production because Josh Allen is a monster, and he is a monster. It's because the Bills said, we know what Gabriel Davis is. We know how to scheme him open. We know he's a really fast guy who actually finishes the second half of routes a lot better than he starts them. He's really good on in-breaking routes, up the seams, up the middle of the field. He has good size, and they attacked him. If you watched where he caught a lot of those balls, he caught a lot of them in the middle of the field. They were just running him straight up the middle. He has a lot of back end speed, so he doesn't start his routes great, but his back end speed is great. That's kind of what Joe Schoen said when they were evaluating him in the beginning when they first drafted him. Like his 40-yard dash, they were like, oh, the first half he got out of his break poorly, but the second half of it was great, and he made up some good ground there. And they were actually hoping he ran in the 4-3-8, the 4-5-8-4-5-4 range because they wanted him to drop. And he did end up dropping to the fourth round, ended up getting an absolute steal. And they said, this is how we can scheme a guy like this open. The Giants don't even understand how to do that, right? They don't even understand how to properly evaluate talent because we go out and get these talented players and the coaching staff has no idea how to actually maximize them, have no idea how to use Kadarius Toney. The fact that he disappeared some games when he was healthy, it was devastating. It was like, you guys are dumb as rocks. Like, we're sitting here on my couch watching the game, and it's like, we could come up with better schematics and route concepts than some of these guys, and it was really poor. And ultimately, the Giants need to be more creative. They need to be more modernized, and I think that they will end up doing that with their next head coach. The consensus is that it's going to be Brian Dable. I'm going off a little bit of tangent here, Anthony, but I imagine you agree with me here that the Bills kind of at least their management style centers around getting good value picks and not overspending on poor positional value, but maximizing it because they have good coaches to actually make those players better. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. You're absolutely right. This is part of why I really like Joe Shane as a general manager candidate. Him and Brandon Bean have been phenomenal with positional value, finding talent in the middle rounds and not overspending on players. I mean, yeah, they gave up a lot to get Stephon Diggs, but they didn't give up too much, and they definitely won that trade. I mean, Stephon Diggs has been phenomenal for the Buffalo Bills and really helped Josh Allen have the emergence that he did. And of course, you look at a position like tight end, for example, right? Tight ends are not extremely valuable, but the Bills were able to find a really, really good tight end in Dawson Knox in the middle rounds of the draft, like many of the teams with the best tight ends in the NFL tend to do. I mean, you look at George Kittle, fifth round pick, right? Travis Kelsey wasn't a first round pick. Most of the best tight ends in the NFL weren't first round picks. And when they are first round picks, no matter what, they just can't live up to the potential. Like, you look at Kyle Pitts, fourth overall pick in this draft, he had a historic season for a tight end, and he wasn't the rookie of the year. Like, he's not even in the running for rookie of the year because he's a tight end. They're just not as valuable. So, as great as Kyle Pitts was, he still was a tight end, and that's something that is going to be held against him just because of the situations that tight ends are placed in. It's not the situations that quarterbacks or wide receivers are placed in to really add wins to a team. Tight ends just don't have that same impact, which is why when you look at the Bills, the way they found their tight end in the middle round was the right way of doing it. When you take a look at what the Giants did in 2017, finding their tight end in the first round, Evan Engram, of course. We won't get too far into Evan Engram because we know everybody hates him at this point, right? But they could have gone with Ryan Ramczyk, one of the best right tackles in the NFL. He was on the board. Now, what would the positional value tell you to do? It would say go with the offensive tackle every single time, even if he's not graded as a better player, even if he's not, a more proven player. You go with the offensive tackle because tight ends just aren't as valuable. And the Bills understand that. The Giants, for a time now, have not been able to understand that. They haven't understood it at all. And that's what's hopefully going to change once Joe Shane enters the building and gets to work here. Hopefully, we can start drafting players to match the positional value and hopefully start maximizing their talent with a good coaching staff.
Yeah, and for the record, I don't hate Evan Ingram. I hate that he drops footballs, but I don't think he's a bad guy. I think he's a great guy, and his work ethic has always
Good
spoke for
guy,
itself.
good guy, but he
He
just
just
has
can't
never
catch
lived
the
up to
ball.
his potential. He's
Right.
because he's never lived up to his potential, and he
And I
never
want
will
to
as a tight end in the first round.
right, and I want to throw out there though, just as another element to consider in this mess, the coaching for the Giants on offense has been abysmal since he was drafted. So maybe he will probably never reach his potential, mainly because the Giants never allowed him to. Mainly because the quarterback situation was always fluctuating. The offensive line was garbage, could never finish his routes, never had confidence. When they leaned on him, it would just go downhill from there. It just everything was a mess, and it always has been since he was drafted. So, hopefully, I hope he has a better career somewhere else in another team. Most players leave the Giants. I mean, look at BJ Hill, guys in the freaking playoffs. Most players leave the Giants. Eli Apple's on a playoff team, man. Like, that should get your freaking blood boiling. Eli Apple made a play last week. Like, that, I never thought I'd say Eli Apple would make a play, man. But he did. So now New Orleans is shitting on him, and it's fucking hilarious. So, looking at Daniel Jeremiah, let's get back to the draft before I get taken away again. Daniel Jeremiah's draft, we'll start with the fifth overall pick. And similar to other mock drafts and probably many that we will create this offseason. He goes with Ikem Ekwonu from NC State. Now, Ikem Ekwonu is an awesome, awesome prospect, right? He's a left tackle by nature. He has a lot of snaps at left guard, but the Giants theoretically might move him to the right side, which is not his traditional position, but a lot of guys do make that transition from left to right side. It'll take him a year to adjust, but that's really why the Giants need to use Daniel Jones right now as this interim quarterback, in my opinion. I think Daniel Jones, let him battle it out. Maybe trade him for something down the line. But I think that Ikem Ekwonu have in that first round being a right tackle for the Giants next season could be a benefit. Anthony, what do you think?
I mean, I think we're going to see nearly every mock draft. We have so far seen nearly every mock draft have the Giants take a tackle with the fifth overall pick, and more often than not, we are seeing Ikem Ekwonu as that number five overall pick because most analysts don't think Evan Neal is going to make it. Now, you really look around. There are some draft websites and draft analysts and big boards out there that don't have Evan Neal as the number one offensive tackle. For example, the Draft Network. Now, they're a very credible source. We've seen guys from there like Jordan Reed get huge paydays with other websites because they're a very credible source and they have a lot of really good writers and a lot of good football analysts and talent evaluators on their staff. And they don't have Evan Neal as the number one offensive tackle. Rather, they have Ikem Ekwonu as their number one offensive tackle. So keep that in mind. He is a really good prospect. And if the Giants are settling on Ekwonu with the fifth overall pick, it's not really settling. Okay. They're getting a phenomenal talent. And not only that, I mentioned this when we went over the Mel Kiper mock draft. They're getting a versatile talent, a guy that's played both guard and tackle. And for the Giants, we all know they have needs at both guard and tackle. So let's say that he were to fail at tackle, they could always just, with a backup plan, move him over to guard, and hopefully he can revitalize his career in that position if he were to fail at tackle in the NFL. And I really like that they can have that backup plan with Ekwonu and just know that he can move around on the offensive line if he needs to, but hopefully he wouldn't even have to. The other thing, though, that makes it a little bit interesting is he is a left tackle. Okay, he's always played on the left side of the line. He has not gone over to the right side yet. Now, Andrew Thomas did play on the right side in college, but I don't want to see Andrew Thomas move. I feel like he's finally hitting his groove and he's looking to be one of the best left tackles in the NFL, one of the best young left tackles in the NFL right now, in my opinion. And his ceiling is only going higher, right? So for Ekwonu, being a career left tackle in college, or at least a left guard slash left tackle, being on the left side, it might be really difficult for him to transition over to the right side of the line as a rookie and have to start for the Giants in year one. So that's kind of like buyers beware on Ikem Ekwonu. Again, phenomenal talent. Some have him as the best tackle in the draft. I definitely would not be upset with him with the fifth overall pick. I'd probably be pretty thrilled about it as well. But he's not a perfect prospect. No prospects are. And there are a couple of red flags that I have for him.
Yeah, I mean, look, there are always going to be problems, but the question is, are they teachable? Are they coachable problems? And I would say that most of them for Ikem Ekwonu are. I mean, he's a freaking monster human being. What is he? He's 6'4", 320 plus pounds. Probably put on some more size depending on what scheme they run. He's young as hell. It's like this is the kind of player. He's an athletic monster, right? He's athletically gifted. I watched a video of him. He takes out the linebacker at the second level, and this other I think it was might have been a defensive lineman or linebacker is kind of running on the sideline trying to chase somebody, and Ikem Ekwonu just kind of looks at him and he just lowers his shoulder into him, and I just love that about offensive linemen that just go after the secondary hits. You know what I mean? Like they don't stop when the play, even if the running back has taken off, he's already buried two guys. He's like, I just want to bury another guy. It's just it never stopped. That's what kind of Andrew Thomas was like when I first saw him out of Georgia, and I think that this Ikem Ekwonu also has a similar style, and I do like that about him. And he took a really big, notable step forward this year as a pass protector. Of course, he has a lot of room to grow, and I think that's a huge benefit for him. Like he's already like considered one of the top tackles, if not the top tackle in the draft. And everyone's saying his room to grow is so exponential, which is what gets me excited, right? Because he already is starting out at a pretty solid level with good fundamentals and a good base. And then just the potential is just like, Pro Bowl potential, impact starter in year one. I think that's really, really big. And Anthony, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Jedrick Wills also make the transition to the other side of the line, or is he at right tackle?
Yeah, no, he did, I believe, make the transition to the line, and I know, of course, they talk a lot about Tristan Wirfs making the transition. This is every year we always have tackles coming out that they
People
want to
do.
make
They do it.
transitions. Sometimes they do it, and sometimes it's successful. Other times it's not successful, and they just don't have them do it. But yeah, there's every year there's tackles that transition.
Right, and I think that's also something to know is like I wouldn't be too concerned about him playing left tackle or left guard or whatever it might be. Like he has the experience and fundamentals to go. You just, of course, it's a different side entirely, so it'll take him time to adapt. But he's so young, right? You give him the right coaches, give him the time. They'll have a full spring, a full summer to get right, and really with the new coaching staff and everything and adapt. So especially with like the new coaching staff in place and those rookies, it'll be fresh, right? It'll be fresh for them. They won't be going into their second system, their third system. I think the rookies this year will have the benefit of like knowing these guys are going to be around for like 5 years. So, and one thing I liked what Shane said in the past, at the same time, is like, I always want to pay my own players. I don't want to have to go out and sign free agents to plug holes. I want to pay the guys that I draft because those guys are the ones that set your culture for you. They're the ones that build the culture. You don't want to have to bring guys in to then adapt to your culture. Maybe they bring some red flags, or you always want your guys that you draft to have an impact. You always want to pay them first and be loyal. So that's ideal. I think first and foremost, the Giants have spent way too much money on guys outside of the organization trying to fill holes, and that's got to end, guys. I think that has to stop. If that doesn't stop, we're going to be right back where we are right now. The draft needs to be better. The last 2 years have been tremendously improved compared to the first two under Dave Gettleman. So I give Joe Judge credit for that. I think he's a solid talent evaluator at the very least. But his second pick for Daniel Jeremiah, and let me just give you the first, who everybody else is drafting. So Jacksonville goes with Evan Neal with pick number 1, which is definitely interesting. Aiden Hutchinson, number 2. Kyle Hamilton, number 3 with Houston. The Jets land Kayvon Thibodeau, and I keep telling all my Jets friends, and all my friends are Jets fans, like I love what the Jets are doing in terms of their rebuilds. They have done a tremendous job building that roster from scratch. They hit the restart button, got Zach Wilson, who looked really good. And I think that their secondary, they was basically patchwork and rookies. Elijah Moore, I know Anthony was also really liked him. He was one of my top receivers in this past draft class. He was a freaking animal, and I love that player so much. I scooped him off the waiver wire in fantasy. Ended up starting the last couple games for me and won me a couple games at 20 plus points like 4 weeks in a row. And I love, we also really liked, what's his name? Elijah Vera Tucker, another really great player they drafted. And he's playing guard for them now, and he's also capable of playing tackle. He was a left tackle and guard, so that's exactly what Ikem Ekwonu is, but he's even bigger. So it's really, really intriguing to see those guys make the transition. So they go with Kayvon Thibodeau, pair him with Carl Lawson, who's coming back from the Achilles tear. They're going to have a freaking monster defense. They have a ton of money too. That's what I want the Giants to be like, by the way. I want them to have the just a ton of money to spend, but also you're getting good draft players and you're coaching them up and they're looking good as rookies. When you have a player looking really good as a rookie, that's a really good sign for the future. But the Giants with the 7th overall pick, in between them, Carolina goes with Ahmad Gardner, cornerback out of Cincinnati. And then the Giants go with an interesting selection, senior linebacker out of Utah, Devin Lloyd. Now, that's a really interesting one because a lot of people might say, why not George Karlaftis? Why not Tyler Linderbaum? I guess it's interesting because Daniel Jeremiah has Kenny Pickett going at 9 to the Denver Broncos, then Matt Corral to Washington. I don't even think Tyler Linderbaum goes until, let's see if we can even find him. He's deep
I think he had him on 29 on this mock draft. He fell really, really far on
to
Daniel Jeremiah's
Cincinnati.
draft.
Yeah.
Yep, 29.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, this is what I've been saying the past couple of weeks. Centers do not go in the top 10. And Anthony, you probably remembered me saying this. Centers do not go in the top 10. That is like traditional. I was looking back at the draft, the history of them, and over the past 10, 15 years, like centers just don't go in the top 10, let alone the top 15. But Tyler Linderbaum is an exception, right? He's a potentially elite player. And I think he could go in the 15 to 20 range, even the 10 to 20 range. I don't think he'll be a top 10 player. Spending the 7th overall pick on him is a little bit pricey for my liking. I think I'd rather go with like best player available or trade back and get Tyler Linderbaum. That would be ideal in my opinion. If you could trade back, get more value for the draft and get Tyler Linderbaum, I think that would be a good scenario for the Giants. What do you think about that?
I want to share my opinion on that because off the bat, I really love that idea. I think it's fantastic. We know what the benefits are to trading down. The Giants just did it this last year, and now here we are talking about 2 first-round picks, both in the top 10, and we're super excited for that. But here's my thing. If the Giants are trading down in the first round of the draft, it's usually because a team is trading up to get a quarterback. Are the Giants in position to do this once again? They did it last year. Are they in position to back-to-back years trade out of a first-round pick that could be used on a quarterback so another team can take that quarterback? Now, okay, Daniel Jones going into last year, we had some confidence in him. But right now, do we have that confidence, or is it too much of a question mark? Is it more of a, well, if there is a prospect worthy of the Giants' seventh overall pick, they should take that quarterback, right? Is it That's really the question that we're going to have to answer between now and April, and that's really what Joe Shane is going to probably make his number one focus. If the Giants are there at number seven, do they want to extract as much value as possible from that pick, trade down, take a guy like Tyler Linderbaum, and maybe get another first round pick for next year's draft? Or do they want to go reset this team and take a quarterback? That's going to be the big question for the Giants. I know that conversation hasn't really began yet. We're kind of all assuming that Daniel Jones is going to be the guy, going to be the starter in 2022. But there's a lot of time between now and April. There's pro days, there's senior bowls, there's combines. There's a lot of time for these quarterbacks to start shooting up draft charts, and it's only going to make the Giants draft pick more valuable than it already is. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, by the way. Um, Quarterbacks always come through late. Like the hype for quarterbacks hits, and suddenly guys that were in like the 15 to 20 range are now top 10 picks. And that is great for the Giants, like you mentioned, because Giants can capitalize on that. And that's what I hope they do.
And you know who was one of those players that was initially 15 to 20 pick, then became a top 10
Daniel
pick because of
Jones.
draft hype? Well, Daniel Jones, but that's different. I was going to say Josh Allen. I remember initially he wasn't the
That's
sought after
facts.
quarterback prospect. He really shot up the draft boards after the
Dwayne
NFL
Haskins, another one.
combine. Haskins had a
Actually, he
really
dropped. He
phenomenal season.
dropped.
He
I think
dropped
he
after
dropped.
the combine,
It's the
but Josh
opposite.
Allen's combine performance, Josh Allen had a combine performance like no other, shot him up the draft boards, and then he was a top 10 pick. And now look at the Buffalo Bills. So sometimes it goes hand in hand. Sometimes people shoot up the draft boards, become a Daniel Jones, leave a team in a really awkward quarterback situation like the Giants. Sometimes they shoot up the draft boards, that team takes a chance on them, and they're right. And honestly, Patrick Mahomes is another one of those examples as well. They traded up for him. I mean, that's kind of how it goes, man. These quarterback prospects, you don't really know that they're going to be top 10 picks until draft night. They just shoot up at the last second. And I think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, that guy this year is Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett is the guy that is probably going to happen to. I think Matt Corral, a Coral, whatever his last name is, you could say he could be a prospect that could shoot up the board. I just don't know if people are as confident in his abilities as an off script player, but it's possible.
I'm going to throw a sleeper name out there. This is the name that you really like. I think Malik Willis is
Malik
going to shoot
Willis.
up the
Oh,
draft
I know
board.
he
I do.
is. Oh, he's gonna.
And
He's gonna
and you
shoot
know
up.
me, I have not been a big proponent of Malik Willis. I'm not too crazy about him as a prospect. Granted, there's a lot of time between now and April. I'm going to do a draft evaluations. I'll probably do film breakdowns on this channel and everything. But I think that he's going to have a crazy increase in draft stock between now and April. I'm starting to see some buzz here and there from different draft sources. I think it's going to start to get really legitimate come February.
And the perfect scenario for Malik Willis is this: a team that can sustain 1 year with him on the bench. That is the best case scenario for Malik Willis. Now, it could, and like kind of like what the, I guess, 49ers are doing with Trey Lance. There's a lot of different guys, or even Jordan Love with Green Bay. I don't think he's ever going to be that good, but that's kind of what the idea was. We'll sit him behind Aaron Rodgers and prepare him for the future. I think that Malik Willis has the elite arm talent. He has an elite arm, right? He has a gun, a freaking cannon of an arm. He has the rushing ability, right? He has everything you want in an athlete. He is a perfect athlete. The problem is, can he become a pro style quarterback? That's the problem. Can he read coverages pre-snap? Can he make checkdowns? Can he give what the defense is giving him? Does he always have to go for the home run? Is he injury prone because he's going to take bigger hits? And what happens when he plays against better talent? Liberty's not playing the best schools. That's the problem. That's the big question mark. Now, the Giants actually might be a great place for him to start. And I'm not saying, and I'm not saying the Giants are going to draft Malik Willis. The only reason I'm saying this as a scenario is because the Giants don't need to start Malik Willis right away. They can build a scheme, and Daniel Jones can run the scheme. It's gonna Brian Dable. Let's say we estimate he's the head coach. Brian Dable's the head coach. He loves those rushing plays with Josh Allen. He loves to run the football with his quarterback. Malik Willis offers that to him. Daniel Jones offers that to him. He can build a scheme with Daniel Jones in the interim while Malik Willis is learning, and then plug Malik Willis in, and it will change. It won't change at all. And I think that actually would be a good situation for Willis. A new team, a young team, they're building up. He can grow with the coaches, grow with the scheme that they're building. I think that would be a good scenario for him. Would I prefer that for the Giants? That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I could see how it would work. But in reality, the Giants need to invest heavily in their offensive line. They may want to target a Bryce Young in 2023, a CJ Stroud. Maybe if Malik Willis dropped to the end of the first round, they trade up and grab him. I would be okay with that personally. But in this scenario, Daniel Jeremiah, and we'll go back to the mock draft. A lot of scrambling here, my friends. I'm sorry about that, but there's just so much excitement. I'm so excited about these prospects. You can obviously tell. I'm really excited to talk about all of them and what they bring. And there's just so much to go through. So I love going on these little tangents, and I hope you guys enjoy them as well. But Daniel Jeremiah goes with Devin Lloyd here out of Utah, which is a very intriguing player nonetheless. Devin Lloyd is one of those guys who could play middle linebacker in a 4-3 scheme, or he could play outside linebacker in a 3-4 scheme. Incredibly athletic. He's smart as hell. He's instinctual. If you watched Micah Parsons last year, you saw the instincts, you saw the football IQ. He's a natural born football player. Am I saying Devin Lloyd's Micah Parsons? Not at all. It's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the IQ is there. The feeling, just in the middle of a play, you suddenly realize, oh crap, that's an end around, or you have the IQ to understand and visualize things as it's happening. Devin Lloyd has that ability, right? He's a tremendous athlete. He's long. He's strong as hell. 6'3", 235 pounds. He's a big boy. And he hits hard. He's a fifth-year guy at this point in time. I think personally, if the Giants went out and got an elite linebacker prospect like this, who could pair with Blake Martinez, let's say they retained Blake Martinez, pair with Blake Martinez, that is a monstrous upgrade over Tay Crowder. Let Tay Crowder be the reserve. He does not need to be starting any longer. He was not that great last year. He was serviceable, but he's a backup. If we're being honest here. You pair Devin Lloyd with Blake Martinez coming back from the ACL tear, you have a stellar duo of linebackers to work with and build off in the future. So I would be excited about that prospect. However, I do like George Karlaftis, who's a little bit better for a 4-3 scheme. So I don't really know if the Giants are going to transition to that. The personnel would suggest they stick with a 3-4. Vic Fangio traditionally goes with the 3-4. Wink Martindale from the Ravens goes with the 3-4. Most modern defenses in this day and age roll with the 3-4 because it allows you to do a lot of different things with blitzing those linebackers and dropping them back into coverage and confusing quarterbacks. So it's a little bit more modernized, but at this point in time, I think you're better off just sticking with what the Giants have. Even Patrick Graham could stay for all we know. So there's a lot left to unfold there. But Anthony, what is your opinion about going out and getting a linebacker in Devin Lloyd who could be a edge rusher off the edge for the Giants? He could play linebacker, a lot of versatility with him. I think that it's not the worst pick in the world. I would be happy the defense now has an elite linebacker prospect that they can build around and really work off of.
Yeah, I'll say this. This is becoming like an annual tradition. Every single year, there's a linebacker prospect that emerges that the Giants get mock drafted with. Because the Giants haven't fixed their linebacker position in a very long time. I know they did sign, of course, Blake Martinez, and he was good, but they still need more. They need more at the linebacker position. So every single year, we're hearing the Giants might draft a linebacker, Isaiah Simmons, Micah Parsons. It's every single year we're hearing this, but it's just never happening. So, do I think that they're going to go with a linebacker? Well, history would suggest that we don't. However, we have a totally new general manager and a totally new front office being established for the Giants. So, never say never. It possibly could happen. But personally, I don't see Devin Lloyd as an edge rusher like at all. I view him as one of those really rangy off-ball linebackers. And let me say, the dude's got some fucking range. Okay, he is an athletic specimen from the linebacker position. I'm not trying to get too carried away with any of these comparisons, and I'm not trying to hype him up too much. But you talk about the rangy linebackers in the NFL, like a Fred Warner, like those guys with that sideline to sideline speed that can make plays in coverage. That's what you're talking about with Devin Lloyd. That's what you're hoping he becomes. Or even with a Devin White, how he's just got that speed. Now, he uses his speed much differently than Fred Warner. Fred Warner is a coverage killer. He is just amazing in coverage. But Devin White is amazing as a pass rushing linebacker with all of that range and speed that he has. He gets sideline to sideline, but he also screams through B gaps and gets sacks, right? Devin Lloyd probably has a little bit of both of those abilities. I don't think he's super refined as a pass coverage guy. I don't think he's super refined as a pass rusher either, but I think that he has a lot of those athletic traits that you can't teach. That speed. I mean, I see some of these plays when I watch a couple clips on him and some film on him where he's just like a heat-seeking missile into the backfield, or there's a swing pass out to the left sideline to the running back, and he goes from the right hash all the way to the left sideline and makes a tackle for loss. He just boom just like a missile right at the running back. And it's really impressive. It's kind of those things that you can't teach, right? You just can't teach that. And that heat seeking missile trait is phenomenal to have at the linebacker position. And it's something that the Giants don't have. What they have in Blake Martinez is a guy that knows his run fits. He knows how to fill the gaps, plug the holes, and make running stops. But they don't have a linebacker that can go sideline to sideline and make incredibly impressive rushing stops on the sideline. So I think that's what you really get with Devin Lloyd. Now there are some concerns with him. I think that he's a little undersized, and you mentioned Micah Parsons at some point. I will say he's not Micah Parsons. He's never going to. I'm never going to consider him the same prospect as Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons to me last year was the most surefire prospect in the NFL draft. I graded probably, I don't know, 100 prospects. He was my number one prospect graded. Micah Parsons I had above every single quarterback, above Penei Sewell. He was my number one graded prospect. I thought that he was the most impressive prospect in the draft. I was right about that to some extent, okay? But not to toot my own horn on that, it's just linebacker positions. You can kind of tell when there's an elite, like super good linebacker. And Micah Parsons was that. He was just different. So Devin Lloyd, if he is the first linebacker taken in this year's draft and he does go in the top 10, personally, I don't think he will go in the top 10 because Micah Parsons didn't even go in the top 10. And no matter how good Devin Lloyd is, it's going to be really a really hard pitch that you're going to convince me that he's anywhere in the same stratosphere as Micah Parsons. So I don't really want to hear that comparison necessarily. I know I made a couple of other comparisons in terms of playing style, not ability, but of playing style. But I do think that Devin Lloyd, as a prospect, does have a lot of really coaching friendly tools considering his athleticism that he has. A coach would love to get their hands on a prospect like Devin Lloyd and really experiment with him and see what they can make of him because he does have those athletic traits that you just can't teach. So I like Devin Lloyd a lot. Not sure if I would spend the seventh overall pick on him, but again, I say it with every prospect. It is only January, almost February now, but it's only January. It's not April. We have a lot of time to keep continuing to evaluate all of these different prospects, make some grades on them, and pick who we think is worthy of the top 5 and number 7 overall picks in this year's draft. I'm not in the position to say that Devin Lloyd is worthy of that pick yet. Personally, I'm just not. But I could see why that argument would be made by Daniel Jeremiah because of his physical and athletic abilities.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I get it. Like you said, cannot compare him to Micah Parsons because he's an absolute monster and he's going to be an all-pro player, and we definitely missed out on him there. We really loved him. Anthony, I believe that he was also your number one defender in the draft class.
Number
I
one
mean,
player in the draft class.
number
He
one
was just
player,
number
straight up.
one.
Yeah,
Yep.
he was my number one defender. I just like to categorize them because of the impact on different sides of the ball. But he was my number one defender. It's just like when you have a guy with that much athletic potential that has the coachability and that has that instincts to it. The instincts is what takes it to another level for me. Because at the same time, like I also look at for quarterbacks, another like one of the biggest traits that I'm now starting to lean toward is the instincts for a quarterback. That's why I've fallen in love with Malik Willis, by the way, as a prospect and as a developmental player. All of the best quarterbacks in today's day and age are instinctual based quarterbacks, right? They just feel the pressure. They feel where to go. They feel that, this is the right opportunity. They know they off script things. Like Daniel Jones will never be elite because he can't go off script, right? That's his biggest flaw. He is a robot. And the Giants did that to him. Jason Garrett made him a robot. He can't go off script. Like he takes off running every now and then, but it's just not enough. He can't roll out to the right and I saw him do it one time to Dante Pettis across his body against the Ravens 2 years ago, and I was like, wait a second, that's what I was looking for. That was that flash that I said, oh, I see Josh Allen, I see Patrick Mahomes do that every single game, but I have never seen Daniel Jones do that before. And that was like, that was interesting. Like, why doesn't he do that more often? And I think it was the coaching. Personally, I think they made him robotic. I think they wanted him to be like staring down receivers because he had to wait for receivers to get open. He didn't trust them enough. I just think that another trait that I'm considering for quarterbacks is that instinctual ability, that off-script capability to make something happen when everything around them is crushing, is crumbling. Josh Allen, like 4th and 13, he's freaking running around back there, slinging footballs, playing football. You know what I mean? Like instinctual, backyard, playing football. That's that next element of quarterback play that I've started to value tremendously because the only guys that are really capable of the only players and quarterbacks that are really capable of managing a game without going off script are ones that have phenomenal offensive lines, right? The Buccaneers, like phenomenal offensive line. Like if you saw Tom Brady, he was getting his ass whooped all game long against Tampa Bay or against the Rams. And then he ends up like he's just that good that he's able to suffice and supplement. Cam Akers gave them a bunch of opportunities there, so they got lucky on that side. But then you look at like Matthew Stafford. He's also good, pretty good off script. He can run around and sling a ball. Like I love the instinctual nature of quarterbacks. I think that's a very undervalued trait for a lot of people. Malik Willis has that. He has the stuff that you cannot teach. He has the confidence you cannot teach. The arm strength to throw across his body. You cannot teach that stuff, right? It's not teachable. You can't. I mean, you can increase strength, but it's just pure like instincts and ability. That's why I've really liked Malik Willis. But I think, like I said, I think he needs a year or two in the right scenario for him to become the best player available, or the best player possible. And the Giants just may not be able to offer that to him. Maybe they will. Who knows what happens here? I'm really excited about the draft for that reason. That's why this draft is so exciting, because we have so many picks, so many opportunities to go out and get some phenomenal players, guys. But I'd love to hear your opinions on kind of everything we've talked about. It's been a pretty fun episode. I've definitely gone on some tangents, but I think that maybe you guys enjoyed them. Daniel Jeremiah's draft class with Ikem Ekwonu and Devin Lloyd, definitely an intriguing one. I love Ikem Ekwonu. I would love to get him at 5. That would be an ideal scenario for me. Would I be mad about Devin Lloyd? Absolutely not. Would I prefer a trade back and maybe targeting a Tyler Linderbaum, or maybe like, I don't know, a pass rusher if George Karlaftis was there? Maybe, who knows? Guys can drop. Maybe Devin Lloyd drops to 10 or 9 and Denver wants to get Kenny Pickett. Who knows? Anything can happen. That's the best part. So we're really, really excited for the draft. Obviously, we'll be making more mock draft videos and reacting to some of these in the coming days and weeks. But I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. As always, make sure to like and smash the subscribe button below on YouTube. Much love as always. We'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Giants episode.